Let's kick things off by exploring why disagreeing in English can feel so intimidating, especially for learners. Even when you know what you want to say, there's often this fear that you'll come across as rude or insensitive just because of language barriers. Why do you think that is, David?
Honestly, Emma, most of us want to avoid hurting people's feelings, no matter what language we're speaking. But when it comes to English, there's an extra layer of anxiety. Many learners worry their words might sound harsher or more direct than they intend, and that makes them hold back.
Absolutely. In a lot of cultures, we're taught to keep quiet, go along with the group, and avoid confrontation. So when it comes to speaking up in English, there's this added pressure to keep the peace, even if it means you're not being fully honest.
That's so true. But the reality is, healthy disagreement can actually show that you're engaged and thoughtful. If you approach it right, disagreeing can deepen conversations and build stronger, more respectful relationships across cultures.
Let's get practical and give our listeners 3 essential principles for disagreeing without damaging relationships. What's the first golden rule you recommend, David?
The first principle is to stay soft on the person but firm on the idea. That means you don't attack someone's character or motives. Just focus on explaining your perspective about the topic itself, keeping it objective and respectful.
Exactly. Principle number 2 is to show curiosity, not combat. When you ask thoughtful questions, actively listen, and invite the other person to share more, it turns the conversation into a dialogue rather than a debate.
And the third principle is using buffer language. These are phrases like, I see your point, but, or that's interesting. Here's how I see it. They create space and soften the transition, making it easier for both sides to stay open-minded and comfortable.
Now let's arm our listeners with some practical language. What are some powerful, polite phrases people can use to disagree in English and still sound respectful?
One great phrase is, I understand what you're saying, but I see it a bit differently. This shows you're listening and thoughtful, not dismissive. Another is, that's a good point, and I'd like to add another perspective. You build on the conversation rather than shut it down.
I also like, I'm not sure I agree, but I'd love to understand more. That phrase signals openness and invites the other person to share their reasoning, which keeps things collaborative instead of confrontational.
Absolutely. You can also say, I've had a different experience. Can I share it with you? Or, that's one way to look at it. Another way might be, these keep the tone smooth and encourage shared exploration, not argument.
Let's bring this to life with a real example. I want to share the story of Lena, a student from Brazil who used to avoid disagreeing in her international workplace because she feared being seen as difficult. What did she tell us, David?
She explained that even when she knew an idea wouldn't work, she just stayed silent in meetings. It was all about not wanting to create conflict, especially in a language that wasn't her native one.
So we practiced together using those soft disagreement phrases. In her next meeting, Lena tried, That's an interesting approach, May. I suggest something else that might work better? It was a small change, but it made a big impact.
And her manager actually thanked her for speaking up and ended up using her idea in the final proposal. That's proof that you don't have to be loud to be effective. Being clear and kind is what earns respect in the long run.
Let's talk about one more crucial piece. How you say things can matter just as much as what you say. Why is tone and timing so important when disagreeing, David?
Because if your tone is too cold or too forceful, people might tune out or get defensive no matter how polite your words are. A calm, steady, and gentle voice helps keep the conversation safe and productive.
And timing really matters too. Don't interrupt or jump in too quickly. Sometimes just waiting a moment, taking a breath and saying, I'd love to offer another view on that if now's a good time, can make all the difference.
That sentence alone invites people to listen rather than resist. It signals respect for the other person's input while making space for your own perspective, which is the heart of healthy disagreement.